In the final year of World War II, when Europe was burning and the skies above the Mediterranean were a battleground of exhausted pilots and battered machines, an event occurred so strange, so unexpected, that for a few brief moments the war simply stopped. This is the extraordinary true story of a neutral Turkish pilot, a navigation error, and a mysterious aircraft that forced two bitter enemies, Britain and Germany, to fall silent in mid-air. In 1944, Turkish Air Force pilot Ferid Kaya was on a routine patrol mission. Turkey had remained officially neutral throughout most of the war, carefully balancing between Allied and Axis pressure. Its pilots were strictly instructed to avoid entering combat zones, avoid provoking either bloc, and above all, never allow their aircraft to appear as if taking sides. For Ferid Kaya, it was supposed to be an uneventful flight, standard navigation checks, a sweep along the Aegean, and then a return to base. But war has a way of bending even the simplest plans. That day, strong crosswinds rolled over the Aegean Sea, winds capable of nudging an aircraft off course without the pilot realizing it. Flying in a world before GPS, relying on compass readings and visual references distorted by haze, Kaya drifted farther west than he intended. Minutes later, he unknowingly crossed invisible lines that separated peace from war. As he continued on his unintended trajectory, he spotted distant flashes, bright staccato bursts in the clouds over the outskirts of Athens. At first, he thought the light was weather, maybe reflections off the sea, but within seconds, the truth revealed itself. Two fighter groups, RAF Spitfires and German Messerschmitt Bf-109s, were locked in a deadly dogfight. Bullets tore through the air in shimmering arcs, engines screamed, smoke trails spiraled downward. This was not a patrol zone, this was an active battlefield, and Ferid Kaya was flying straight into it. The British and German pilots were just as unaware of him as he was of them, until he burst into the center of the swirling dogfight. Combat pilots are trained to instantly identify friend or foe. In the chaos of air combat, hesitation can mean death. But when this unexpected third aircraft sliced through the sky, everything came to a halt. It wasn't British, it wasn't German, it wasn't American, Soviet, Italian, or Japanese. The markings were Turkish, distinctive, unmistakable to anyone who studied aircraft recognition. But what was a Turkish fighter doing here, in the exact middle of an Allied Axis duel? The answer nobody knew was simple. Ferid Kaya had no idea where he was. And so, for a few surreal moments, the pilots on both sides ceased fire. The Germans loosened their formation, unsure if the aircraft belonged to a nation about to join the Allies. The British pilots hesitated, wondering if shooting near a neutral plane might spark a diplomatic disaster. And all of them, British and German alike, tried to figure out what the pilot was doing, flying so confidently between them. Kaya saw aircraft diving and climbing around him, but still hadn't fully grasped the situation. Smoke whipped past his cockpit. The thunder of engines rolled around him. He radioed his base, attempting to confirm his heading, but static smothered the transmission. The dogfight shifted. British pilots circled wide, maintaining formation but refusing to fire. German pilots kept their distance, wary of provoking a neutral country whose allegiance could tip the regional balance. The war had paused, not by treaty, not by command, but by collective confusion. Seconds felt like minutes. The sky hung in silence, except for the low hum of engines. Then finally, someone made a move. A British flight leader dipped his wings twice, a widely recognized signal meaning, "Identify yourself." Kaya had no idea what the maneuver meant. He responded with a similar gesture, hoping it conveyed non-aggression. The German pilots saw this strange exchange and grew even more suspicious. Perhaps the Turkish aircraft was signaling the British, perhaps Turkey was finally entering the war on the Allied side, or perhaps, they feared, this was a trap. To the British, the situation was equally confusing. Why would a neutral aircraft fly directly into a battle unless it intended to signal something important? Why now, when Allied forces were preparing major operations across the Mediterranean? Every mind in the sky ran through the possibilities. Was Turkey warning both sides? Was the pilot defecting? Or was some secret allied Turkish operation underway? In reality, Ferid Kaya was simply lost. Before the moment spiraled into renewed gunfire, he realized he needed to escape immediately. He scanned for the safest path out of the conflict zone, but as he banked left to retreat, both German and British fighter groups misinterpreted his movement. The Germans assumed he was aligning with the British assumed he was trying to avoid German fire and needed protection. Instantly, both sides anchored their attention back on each other. The temporary peace collapsed. Engines roared, formations tightened. The spell had broken. The war snapped back into motion. But for that brief window, perhaps only 30 or 40 seconds, the entire sky had fallen still thanks to one lost pilot and an aircraft everyone feared to fire upon. Kaya accelerated away as the dogfight reignited behind him. He dodged a burst of stray gunfire, climbed sharply, and finally broke free of the thick southern haze. Only then did he glimpse the coastline and realized with a mix of shock and embarrassment that he was near Athens, deep inside an active war zone. Back at his base, intelligence officers debriefed him intensely. Turkey's neutrality was an incredibly delicate matter. A single misunderstanding, a British or German pilot accidentally firing on a Turkish aircraft, could have pushed Turkey to war. Diplomats and military officials worked tirelessly to ensure neither side interpreted the incident as a provocation. British records reveal that RAF pilots debated the mysterious aircraft for weeks afterwards. Some believed it was a secret reconnaissance plane. Others suspected it was a Turkish gesture to show they were monitoring both sides. German pilots recorded similar confusion. Reports sent to Luftwaffe command described a neutral aircraft of unknown intention that appeared to signal or maneuver in a manner not consistent with reconnaissance. But the truth remained hidden outside of Turkish military circles. It was simply an error in navigation, an accident of winds and visibility, and one man struggling to find the horizon in a sky full of enemies. Yet the impact of that moment rippled far beyond a simple mistake. It became one of the strangest aerial encounters of World War II, an incident where neither side knew whether to fight or flee, where enemies hesitated out of uncertainty, and where the presence of a single neutral plane briefly held the power to interrupt a war far larger than any of them. For Ferid Kaya, it was a story he rarely spoke about, not because he was ashamed, but because he understood how fragile neutrality had been for his country. A wrong turn could have changed history, a single bullet could have ignited a diplomatic inferno, and yet, ironically, his mistake may have prevented far more damage. For a moment, he forced two sworn enemies to pause, think, and question their assumptions. In a war defined by destruction, that tiny sliver of confusion, those few seconds of silence above Athens, stand as a reminder of how unpredictable history can be. The skies of World War II were filled with aces, heroes, tragedies, and triumphs, but among them lies this stranger tale, the day a Turkish pilot flew into the center of a deadly battle, and both the RAF and the Luftwaffe stopped fighting long enough to ask the same question. Who is this man, and why is he here? In that moment, the war, one of the largest, bloodiest conflicts in human history, was halted not by generals, not by treaties, but by chance, by wind, and by one pilot who never meant to be there. A mistake that became a miracle. A misunderstanding became a legend.